All right. So welcome everyone to the March 18th Octant community meeting. We've got just a couple, we're going to talk about what's coming up in 0.11, which we talked about previously, but there's only one PR that's left outstanding before we're going to look at starting to do that release. We're going to talk about the kind of next set of upcoming priorities for Octant and what the focus will be. Then we'll be touching on kind of the future work, so stuff that's more in like the 6 months from now window. And then I think, depending on if they're up for it, Milan and Sam might have some demos of some things. So I'll just go ahead and get started now. So the last PR that's currently up for review is the terminal component, and it is almost done. We're just doing some revisions on some of the feedback. I've been using it for the last couple days since Milan put the PR up, and things look pretty good. So there's probably just a couple more passes on some reviews for it, and then we'll be ready to release 0.11, which has a lot. You'll see in the release notes, there's a lot of good stuff in there around performance and just some user enhancements, as well as just some other like checklist items for user experience that we've been able to get done with. So that should be coming, hopefully soon. We'll yeah, I don't know exactly when, but soon. As for after we release 0.11, kind of the upcoming priorities for Octant are going to be getting the feature parity for the Electron application, starting to look at editing, specifically just we have the Monaco viewer in place for our YAML right now, so we want to look at starting to extend some of the editing capabilities within Octant. Some of that might be YAML based, some of that might be guided, similar to what we have now with, like, if you want to change a container image and things like that. So, but we're going to be looking at different ways to kind of bring more editing into Octant. And then we're also going to be really focusing on closing out the kind of plugin API version 1, looking for any outstanding issues around plugins that plugin authors are like high on the list for plugin authors, and also just stabilizing that API once we have kind of the new all of the component marshaling and unmarshaling in place, and the new logging interfaces and stuff like that in place. We'll be able to kind of settle on hopefully a version 1 for the API over the next couple months. So any questions about any of that stuff? Okay. So the future work, which we've touched on before, this is stuff that's kind of going to be coming I just kind of want to give everyone an idea of what to expect in the upcoming, these upcoming 9 months to close out this year. And that's going to be a work around in cluster, as well as work around better networking support. Now, what this doesn't mention is that we have a bunch of outstanding work around improving our navigation, updating and refreshing the resource viewer, creating an application, or creating a workflow view. We're not going to call it applications anymore. We're going to call it workflows. Creating a workload view that is a kind of an integration of our existing workload viewer as well as the resource viewer, and making some improvements around guided navigation of your workloads and getting good status information, and then combining that with the editing support to allow you to fix and correct errors. This is all just kind of like big picture stuff for Octant, and all of these kind of tie in together. But specifically, we're calling out some of these larger items just so that folks kind of know the general direction we're going to be moving with Octant, and that is to kind of get more of that full featured experience around for developers and plugin authors, and making sure that folks can use Octant to get that high fidelity view of a namespace that allows them to drill into workloads, that then allows them to understand their workloads as well as fix and correct any errors with their workloads, right? That's still the driving motivation of Octant, is to help people understand what's in their cluster, and then by understanding it, allow you to fix any issues that you see with things in your cluster as you're developing and deploying new things. So that's still our main goal. That's still our focus. And all of these things are kind of just working towards that. So these are kind of like if you look at our Zen Hub, which I can, let's see. Get our Zen Hub here. We have these epics in place in this column, and these are all in line with kind of what we're going to be doing, is just getting the application in place, the object-aware editing, and the plugin system. You can see these first three kind of align with the first three that we're going to be talking about here, or working on here. And then future stuff for in-cluster and better networking support is stuff that's in flight, in progress. So those are a little bit further down the road. So in the more immediate term, it's going to be those, the application, the editing, and the plugin system. So, and that's it there. Any questions? Okay. Milan or Sam, do either of you, first off, want to add anything to what I've just said? And also, do you have demos that you would like to do?
Yeah, there was one more that I wanted to just bring out in the open as an issue to look at before .11. So we moved the namespace bar into the left navigation menu on the premise that it was part of a design change for a new nav bar at one point. And since we've kept the navigation pretty much the same for now, do we want to move that back before we release .11?
That's a good question. So my opinion is that the namespace picker, being where it's at, is actually the right place for it, because depending on the view depending on the module that you're looking at within Octant, you might not have a namespace picker. So having it always present at the top doesn't make sense in the long term of Octant. And I know that Milan and Ross, well, and all of us, but mostly Milan and Ross, have been talking about revisiting the nav and putting a lot of effort into thinking about it and how it might look. So I would defer that to Milan.
Yeah, we did spend quite a bit of time on that, and Ross has put a lot of effort into doing different mockups for different solutions, and I think we're making quite a bit of progress there. And probably the next thing we're going to do is I will do a little bit of prototyping with the side nav to make sure that works the way we expected, because we kind of came back to that as a solution. We're now thinking that the side nav with the that's a little smarter than the one that Clarity provides out of the box may solve most of the problems. So yeah, I agree with you. We should probably address that right after the new release.
And so do you, Milan, in your opinion, do you think we should move the namespace picker back to where it was before, or just leave it as is, since this is where it will, yeah, like, what is your opinion on that?
I like the way, I like where it is right now, but the question is, should we put it there before the release or not? And that, since that's kind of direction we are going to, I think, hopefully in the end, unless things change again, I think it might be good to keep it there.
Okay. How do you feel about it, Sam? Good?
Yeah, I think it's okay. The entire premise of this was that the namespace picker would always be visible regardless of where the user is. So it'll just be a little bit of scrolling for users. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and it'll be, yeah, I agree. And then it'll be corrected in the next iteration of nav. So yeah, okay, we'll just leave it. Cool. Okay, demos. I right before we had this meeting, I spoke to Milan and Sam, was like, hey, do you all want to do a demo of this stuff? I've given you no time to prepare. So if they have demos, we're going to do them. If not, then we can do them next time.
Yeah, I can show the terminal.
Okay, great.
So I can share after you stop sharing, Wayne. All right. So let me share my, hopefully the right screen. All right. Let me just move this way. Cool. So yeah, I've been working on moving the terminal to the tab, and it's been pretty interesting. Definitely way more than I bargained for when I volunteered to do that, but it's been a great learning experience, and I think it works really good the way it is right now. So basically, terminal is now present as a separate tab on the pod view. And if you click on it, it's going to open. I'm sorry, things a little slow on my machine. I'm running some builds in the background. So terminal basically opens kind of similar to YAML viewer and logs inside its own tab. And you can do, anything you want there inside the terminal. And it's going to be present as long as you have a connection or you exit the terminal. So whenever you go back to this pod, you can go to, I don't know, cron jobs and come back. It's going to stay there unless you exit. And if you just type exit, it will exit the terminal, give you feedback about that. It's going to say process exited. And then you can still access it later on if you come back to it. It will just create a new one. So if I go to logs, yeah, things are really slow on my machine right now, and come back, it will just create a new terminal and start sharing. So I did put a little bit of work trying to make the session specific. So basically trying to make each desktop window in your browser has a different session, but there was very few problems with that, and quite a few problems with that, and it would definitely require a little bit bigger surgery inside our server-side code. So we may adjust that at some point, but I think the way it works now, it's pretty good. So basically, if you have another window opening the same pod, it will show exactly the same copy of a terminal, which depending on your application might be good solution.
Yeah, and I think that would be expected for us right now, given that we hold a global session state and we're designed to work from the desktop. As we get into the in-cluster work, we're actually going to need to create user-based sessions where it's actually each browser tab is its own unique session to Octant, and so that work will be like we'll have to re-architect and re-engineer some things, and that work will be handled there. So this is, as it is now, this is perfect.
Yeah, sounds good. That's all I had. Yeah, please play with it, and if you have any feedback, let us know.
Hey, Milan, this is really cool. I love it. Great progress here.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Hey, Wayne, I know I joined a few minutes late. I don't know if you talked a little bit about that. We didn't necessarily reprioritize, but we put some of our big bets in the Zen Hub. Did you give everybody like a high level overview of that, or do you want me to?
Yep. That's what I was. Yep, that's what I did at the
Oh,
start.
yeah, I was a few minutes late. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So Sam worked on a bunch of memory improvements and speed up improvements throughout Octant, and might have something to demo.
Yeah, I can give a quick demo of a memory leak problem that was solved, and it is, I think it's a little interesting, so maybe that's worth going into. Let's see if I can share the screen. And sure, let me just pull this back. All right, So I feel like this is the sort of thing that would end up in a blog post at some point. But this is a very interesting problem that happened when we upgraded to Angular 9. And we used to use this library called ngrx take unto destroy. And for those unfamiliar with the Angular space, there's the idea that you have these things called subscriptions in Angular, and they just watch a specific variable for data changes, and it knows how to smartly update itself as it changes in real time. Now, the problem with using a library like this is that it's nice in the sense that we had it so then it would just sort of magically unsubscribe from them. So when the component gets destroyed, these watchers that look for changes in variables would just magically go away. But when we upgraded to Angular 9, this particular library just stopped working silently. And as a result, it became this, it created a very interesting byproduct, which I'll show here in our content.component. And we can actually see it in a very simple way through logging. So an example would be something like this.contentservice.current subscribe. So let's just put like a print statement here. This executed, and give it a second to load up, and hopefully it should boot up in a second here. In time. Oh, I forgot to ask, can everyone see my screen all right? Yep. Cool. Come on, you can do it. Cool. So we can kind of see here, this is ticking every second here, just because of the way our polling works, and it's updating every second. I've already pre-changed the code back to an earlier branch before this fix. So this is what happens when we click a different link. Come on. Pause the debugger. Keep going. Cool. So we changed to a link. And now notice how it's incrementing by 2 instead of 1 every second. And let's say we just change back again, and it's going to increase by another unit. So it's now increasing by 3. And this is going to continuously increment every time a user clicks a link, all because we use a third-party unsubscribing library. So I guess the moral here is know what your dependencies are doing and do a massive upgrade to a different engine. Just sort of be aware that they can have unwanted side effects.
That's very interesting. Cool. How long did it take for you? How long did it take for you to troubleshoot this?
Well, this was more of an observation, right? So I was looking for performance gains elsewhere because I was trying to shave off some response times when clicking links. And then I realized it got slower and slower as I used Octant, and that didn't seem quite right either. So yeah, so this was kind of a fun little tidbit on the behind the scenes of Octant.
Very cool. Could find some. Sorry, Milan, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Work, and the other thing is always put as many output statements in a log in your code. It's amazing what you learn about it.
Yeah, that's great, Sam. That's really, yeah. I'll be the first to admit that I don't know what all of our JavaScript dependencies are doing. There's so many. But yeah, the JavaScript ecosystem is interesting in that way, where it's just well, all ecosystems can end up like that, but specifically I feel like the JavaScript one is just kind of like, for me, it's like, oh, that worked, keep using it. And then, but yeah, you make a good point, like having to go back and check that it might not be working now. So that silent failure, it's a killer. And I think that's it. Unless we have any questions or comments, I think that's all we had.
Milan, I know you were looking into some of the other tools and products out there that are similar to Octant. How is that going?
Pretty good. For now, I'm basically just compiling the list, and then, I mean, the reason I'm going into it is just to learn a little bit more and see how they solve the same problems, and hopefully learn something that we can, you know, eventually use on our side too. So
yeah, I want to show you something here. So one of the things that we did in other products, like other open source projects, like Harbor and others, is we actually go and create a page called Landscape, and we put it on GitHub. We're pretty open about that, and anyone can just come in and see what our landscape looks like. And that also includes knowledge around competitors or other things. So I'm gonna paste here
that's very cool.
what that looks like, but for some reason, I'll paste it on our Slack channel. I can't find it off the bat so quickly, so I will paste it soon.
And I shared that link too, so if anybody wants to add more things there or add more columns and do a little deeper dive, that would be good. So I think it's good to have a common place where we can share that kind of info.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And I found it, by the way, and I realized why I couldn't find it. We moved our docs, so all of my links are dying, but this is what it looks like, right? So this is the landscape for Harbor. Basically, we went and found 4 or 5 different products that have similar scope, and then we created a set of things that what they do or cannot do. Like, for example, like think about an Octant, right? Can you edit values for deploy workloads? Can you view these type of things? Can you view logs? Can you view pods? Can you scale the pods? Can you troubleshoot? Can you, like, those will be some of the categories for Octant, and I know you already have some of those. So it's be good for us to have, and we can just publish it out as well. So people, if they want to know, hey, I want to pick Octant versus X, why should I? And build on the value proposition, and one of the links there will be our roadmap. And then we can tell them about, hey, even though we don't have X, Y, and Z, this is what we'll have in the future.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
So some of the work that you have, we can almost, I don't want to call it productize it, but you can consume it in such a way that everybody else can view it as well eventually.
No, yeah, it makes it easy for people who are coming across the project to kind of, I think having a grid like that also just makes it easy for people to get a snapshot in their head of like what it's useful for really fast.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the things that we don't support, at least they don't come in, start using it and say, oh, it doesn't do that, then I need that.
Yeah,
so Milan, we'll look forward to putting a landscape thing on Harbor on Octant after you're done. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great info, and I think we're gonna get there. But it's kind of a thing that I do when I have a few spare cycles, which is not. So
No hurry. We'll slowly.
And hopefully it's gonna be a collective effort too. So
great. Well,
Cool
thank
stuff.
you, everybody. And I'll see you next time.
Everybody stay home, stay safe. See you all next time.